Very good afternoon to one and all. It's very exciting and it generates a lot of pleasure always for we, the teachers and mentors, to get to talk to the students. And it's like a circle getting completed. Those who have been on the receiving end of the wisdom and the content from our side, they enrich it even further with their own experiential learning and return it back to us more like an investment that has gone matured. So, this is a way in which our selected candidates pass on the baton to the people who are maybe a little anxious and at the crossroads of the decision making to further enhance the efficiency of their preparation. In this series, I extend my hearty welcome and many congratulations on behalf of the entire Vajiram family, Miss Eshani Anand, who has scored rank 79 this time. Congratulations, Eshani.
Thank you so much, sir, for having me. I hope through this session we are able to clarify a lot of the doubts that candidates are facing. I hope it's a helpful session for all, sir.
So, how is it feeling now? Like you're on the side that you've been aspiring for quite long.
So it's very interesting that it's a bizarre feeling that there's very less to study because for the past 4 years, it's my fourth attempt.
Right.
My daily habits were always related to examination and preparation for the exam. So I think that relief in many places it's there. But I've always been a person who wasn't very much attached to results. So I feel like my process and my journey is something I really hold above also.
Oh,
So it's very interesting.
That's really great. I mean, to have this philosophy, I think it should rub off to the people who are listening to you as well. Let us start on a little generic note. Could you just give us a brief account or whatever length, of course, you wish to, the kind of experience you have had in your entire journey of the preparation so far?
So it's very, yeah, of course, it's just 4 years of my life. I began in 2019, and I think I knew a couple of years before that I would be doing the civil services, only because I knew that this sort of occupation gives you a very broad perspective in life and a very large social network with self-help groups and
Certainly.
panchayats. And I felt that my potential to be a better person, to do good job would be satiated through this, and this is why I went for it. I did not know the number of attempts or even the amount of preparation, but I knew that I'd be ready for whatever curveballs that come towards me. So I began in 2019. I failed the 2020 prelims. I overcame my discrepancies and my failures. I think that lesson taught me to embrace my failures very gracefully. I did not feel that this exam is not for me or I should push back to another journey, but I felt very strongly that if I failed, it has to be a process problem. It cannot be that I have faltered or I don't deserve something. So I went with it, cleared my second prelims, but failed my mains. So somewhere along the line, I felt that maybe your journey is an incremental growth. It's a more waterfall rise rather than a
Very nice.
one-stop solution to all of it. Again, I went back to square one, went to prelims, but I cleared prelims because of my 2020 learnings.
Yes.
And then I cleared the mains again. So the best news of my journey was getting the first interview call in 2022, because that made me give a very sigh of relief that I have overcome a very difficult puzzle in my preparation. The interview went on well. I got into the Indian Revenue Service in 2022's exam. However, although it was a wonderful service, which I was very proud of, a part of me felt unfinished because some of my papers had not gone as well as I wanted to. So I said, maybe I can push myself further. It could have been enough to put an end to the journey then, but then I went again with it, joined the service, and this is where my journey has ended.
Brilliant, brilliant. So, in a way, I think the preparation path has been philosophically evolving for you as well. I mean, very beautifully put. Could you, in a little more objective manner, also, tell the people listening that what were the mistakes you could figure out you were making in your earlier attempts? And first, how did you find them out?
Yes.
And how could you strategize and find a solution for further improvement?
Yes. So it's when you enter this whole gamut of UPSC preparation, you are bombarded with a lot of material online. You have a peer
Yes.
group, you have so many topper talks. You feel bamboozled that there are so many ways to succeed and also fail in the exam. There is always a panic and anxiety, and I think this may propel people to take the easy way out or to make a lot of mistakes. I have made a lot of mistakes in the examination because in 2019, I think I had too many sources. I could not revise them on time.
Yes.
Despite doing so many things by the book with the right source material, I did not internalize my preparation at all. What I should have done is every mock I had given, I should have gone to the wrong questions and thought from scratch. Why was this the thought process of mine? Because I realized the inadequacy of my prep in the exam in 2020. So had I known that PYQs are important, revision is supremely important, and internalizing your mistakes is supremely crucial. So if I had done these three things, I would have perhaps succeeded. But also speaking about the sources, there are so many online sources. It does feel a little bit like you want to cover all of it, क्योंकि कहीं से भी question शायद आ सकता है. But I felt that I put in a week. I noted down all the materials of a particular subject. I made very short notes out of it, and I wanted to have that confidence that I've done best of it in the market. If everyone is doing it, I should do the same, and that's where the buck stops. For mains, I had done value addition, but my suggestion would be that please revise, please do the PYQs, please internalize and keep your sources to a minimum that suffices for you.
Exactly. This is exactly what we also try and advise the people. Like the principle I follow is whichever source wherein you have applied most of your senses, like if you have done the class notes preparation, you have listened to it, your auditory senses involved, you have looked at the board, your visual senses involved, and then you have been preparing notes on it. So ensure you get to that one-stop material onto which you keep adding on, but don't multiply your sources much. So exactly what you have been referring to. And there is another thing that I have, off late a tendency more of people starting on a little anxious note of loading themselves with this, I have to clear somehow in my very first attempt. I think that brings a lot of anxiety. Since you have been through, a few attempts, what strategy did you have to remain supremely motivated all through and not to, invite a lot of panic?
So somehow there are so many statistics online about this being such a competitive, such a tough examination. So a lot of this anxiety is so warranted. It has to be there because it's very competitive. But let me tell you, if you believe in the strategy of tenacity, which means incremental growth with changing approach, that is the way out of this UPSC examination. It is not correct, in my opinion, to think that I should clear in my first attempt only. It's wonderful if it's your propellant energy, but that's wonderful. But you cannot expect everything without having the right approach in mind. Tenacity and perseverance is very important. But what kept me going was such an understanding of something called dichotomy of control. It means that in this exam, there is a huge part that we cannot control. We cannot control the competitors or the sources or the question papers, the patterns, the rank. It cannot be controlled. So is it really right to think that the world owes me everything immediately? So if we sort of relinquish that, the fact that we can't control, I think anxiety can truly satiate. But there is a part we control a lot, which is good habits and having a lot of emotional intelligence in our own minds. Good habits entails waking up on time or whenever you wish to, having good diet and keeping the right sort of energy with you, the right peer group, the right support system.
True, absolutely.
So I would suggest that if you can really understand that there is a big part of the exam you cannot control, there is a huge part that you can, leave the rewards to whoever is giving it to you. There's no other way.
That's the ultimate philosophy, right?
Yes, sir.
Control the controllables. I mean, there are non-modifiables that we cannot do anything about. All right. Now, switching over to something a little more specific. When the people start with the preparation, it is already known that the GS part of it is quite dynamic, multivariant, in nature. So a lot of it depends on the optional that you choose and how you perform in that. Could you tell how did you search your optional paper and you stick to it through your attempts? Yes. So the principles you did follow.
So rightly so, optional is a very important paper because the mains that I did not do well, I was expecting more in my optional paper. So it's a make it or break it for you. However, having said that, Optional, I feel, is a subject where you should have some amount of interest in at least, and this syllabus should be intelligible to you. It should be something that you can stick with for a long time. If it's not working, then the choice is up to the candidates. But I stuck with it because I knew my preparation with optional was a bit unfinished. So in my first few attempts, the reason I chose anthropology is because I love the diversification of the subject. It has a physical anthropology component, has culture, has linguistics. So a lot of it is very similar to my mental faculties. It struck a chord with me and I went with it. So to choose an optional, I would say a preliminary interest is important. Seeing the syllabus and some allied books, if you prefer this is of interest, and that is something you should do. Beyond before, and of course it's independent of your graduation also in many ways. If you wish to do a subject which you like, it's always beneficial. So I think that interest, that commitment is very important for an optional, sir.
All right. Like what I find, studying a subject to clear an exam like civil services, vis-a-vis your academic choice making of the area, many a times they diverge.
Yes.
They don't overlap necessarily. One strategy that people use to choose their optional is how rewarding would that be because of its overlap in the other areas, GS and the essay, and many a times your personality test. How was your experience about anthropology having its influence on the different areas that I'm talking about?
So, like I said, anthropology is so diverse and I enjoy the subject so much. I found a lot of overlap in many ways. Of course, with the GS1 society paper, there is a lot of overlap. But interestingly, in my essays, also in 2021, I had written about the Kula Ring tribes and how they don't associate materials with their philosophy. A lot
Right.
of this, a very nice paragraph in my essay I wrote. I think that was a nice way for me to apply this concept. So I think that has helped me also a lot. Also, by sheer luck, I think in 2023 prelims there was a question on orangutan, which I think I was able to clear only through my optional knowledge,
right.
knowing that physical anthropology is so important.
Right.
I've studied. So anthropology has always been my guiding light for all my subjects. But having said that, if your optional has no overlap with GS at all, I think it's also completely fine.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be the only criterion to choose an optional.
Certainly, yes.
But in the essay, you can diversify the dimensions so much. Any optional can always help you in the essays for sure. I think that is a good overlap.
True
sir.
True that. Many a times, there are people who have already done their post-graduation in a certain area. So they are so well versed with the area, it becomes difficult for them to let that go
Yes.
and then go for something else. So that makes a lot of sense, yes.
Yes, sir.
Right. One particular concern people have before they choose the anthropology is their non-science background maybe, or many like engineers choose anthropology, a lot number of them. You are, another
Yes, sir.
engineer, for example. They have this fear that they have to study a lot of biology. Like what was your experience about it, and how do they actually need to quell this anxiety that they have?
Sir, anthropology has 4 branches, so biology is not the only predominant one in this.
Right.
That's one thing I would like to clarify. And the sort of biology that we study is not so much in detail, so much in depth that one cannot understand at all.
Yes.
So it is a fear which may not have a very strong rationale, I feel. Also, the biology is very logical in mind because, for example, we study evolution. So if you know the parts of your body, we can also ascertain how they've improved through bipedalism, for example.
True.
So the point is, it's quote unquote a sort of applied biology with logic rather than just bioterminologies. And that is something I think doctors will also say that what they study is much more in detail. But in physical anthropology, as long as we can get good diagrams and logical understanding of bio, I think it's not just bio, sir. So the
True.
fear may not have a very strong rationale.
True. And rather, when you start learning some of the biological basis, the entire life starts seeming more poetic.
Yes, sir.
I mean, the way, I bring genome in the class is like the most voluminous history book ever written. I mean, it has
Yes.
all the details of your past and your present and maybe many a times the future, of course, is how we are
correct.
evolving.
Yes, sir.
Coming to another important aspect of answer writing, I mean, writing practice. How did you, in your preparation schedule, club optional with your GS preparation? And what fraction of the time did you give for your anthropology paper? And how much of answer writing? When did you start with it? How much did you write?
Yes.
And in what breaks, like in the
Yes.
phases, before the prelims, after prelims? So if you could
So
sum
I
that up.
had I had chosen anthropology quite early on while I began the preparation, and I had begun some of the studying for anthropology already. So my content was ready. I think by the time prelims was nearing, 2020 prelims was nearing. However, since I hadn't cleared the prelims, I think my bigger change in my strategy was the prelims itself. So I put everything aside and went to prelims. After I cleared the prelims, I came back to the same knowledge, and that is when I started my answer writing practice. It was quite late into my preparation. It did not bode very well for
This is
2021.
21, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So I didn't have much time with answer writing. It did not bode well because I couldn't clear the mains, even though I had a very good understanding of the answer writing process. So I feel that answer writing is a snapshot of what you know exactly immediately. It's a mirror to who you are to the examiner. And I wondered, if I have such clarity in my mind, why is it that my answers are not showing the same?
Yes.
The issue was revision and presentation. So both of these things I had not done as much, and this is why in 2022 I spent at least 70% of my time doing only anthropology. It did help me in 2022, and I'm grateful for that. But in general, if I have to make it a more a strategy, I would say it's always prudent to finish your optional preparation by December, November at least, to get some base going, and then answer writing should be done during the same time.
Correct.
It's very difficult to start answer writing. We always feel like we don't know enough to start answer writing,
Correct.
but it's very simple. Going back to PYQs, having the 4x4 sheet like the UPSC specimens, and then just writing what we know, and then always correcting it. So solving PYQs for anthropology is a very good weapon in this examination, because a lot of it can be predicted.
Yes.
It's a very interesting paper. But once you clear prelims, then devoting time to optional is also very crucial. I think I would have given 4 days a week to optional. My strategy was I would take days for each GS or optional. So I would have taken 3-4 days at least for my optional subject. This was how I went about it.
Okay. One another issue with the optional is, particularly those for the static areas all the more, after an attempt or two, they start boring you. They have already, cloyed your taste for it. Unlike the GS, which always has so much of dynamism,
Yes.
every time you'll have to add more and more layers to your preparation. But I think it is very important to use that period to keep value adding in the preparation in the
correct.
optional. How did you, do the value addition?
So it's a
through what
interesting
sources,
question.
what directions, if at all, guidances
Yes,
and all you
because
used?
since I've taken 4 attempts, it was natural that seeing same spectrum, Lakshmikant, the same notes again would get very boring. But having said that, I knew in my heart that these are the scoring parts of my attempt: the static syllabus for GS, for example, and the optional. There was a time in my preparation where I felt that my mains marks had saturated by a lot. And so I needed some sort of monumental increase to get at least 10-20 marks more in something. So even after clearing in 2022, I did not stop or saturate my content at all. I went ahead, found more knowledge, better quotations, better statistics, something to piece my knowledge more. So like you asked me, I did not stop with my static syllabus. I went ahead, put on top of it even the anthropology. I took up news online, maybe someone won something, so I always enriched my content. So if you do the same strategy, you get the same results. Then you cannot be surprised why the results are the same if you haven't changed your strategy itself.
True that.
So that's why always enrich your content, but don't go overboard or over-reliant and completely lose the base also. Be very smart about your core. My core should have the basic points presented well, and I will add frills just to feel like I can get further 1 or 2 more marks in every question.
Specific materials that you used for anthropology and the enhancement of that value?
Yes, sir. I had taken a very good look at newspapers. Any news that came, I would mark it. I would find thinkers, names of scientists who have done good work in physical anthropology. They would always be in my papers. For GS as well, I had taken a lot of online material. But I would not choose every online material, something that I felt was required. For ethics, for example, I would add better examples, which is a bit more recent, something more contemporary.
Okay. Could you, like, in a little more objective ways, tell us the sources in specific that you used for your anthropology preparation?
So, when I entered the preparation, I had, again, my process was to see a lot of topper copies, blogs. I made a good list of everything, and I had seen Karthik sir's notes for anthropology. They're quite elaborate. There is knowledge on every part of the syllabus, so everything is very nicely presented. So I took that into mind. Also, the textbooks like B.M. Das, Nadeem Hasnain. I think standard textbooks are very, very crucial in the beginning. They should be read at least once, but they are not the be all and end all. One should also look at PYQs and supplement them to your existing core content, and also enrich it as you move on with the value addition, sir. Since I've spent 4 years, I had a good gamut of information with me, but my base was some of these textbooks, sir.
Good, good. A very generic kind of a question. I mean, the preparation takes a huge toll on your mental health, your entire psyche altogether. So, how did you unspool the stress on a regular basis? Did you have some
Yes,
specific
sir.
activities you engaged in?
Sir, I do recall in 2020 and 2022, these 2 years, 20 to 2021, my preparation, I wasn't seeing much success in the exam. But I also did not want a hobby which would distract me too much and not make me want to study more. So I took up the hobby of cubing, Rubik's Cube, and I
Oh.
went from 3x3 till 7x7. There were a lot of tutorials online, so they were just enough fatigue for me to go back to studies, yet remain intellectually stimulated. So that is something I would take in my free time. And as the years went by, I also took up boxing, fitness boxing.
That's good.
Yes, sir. I felt that physical activity is also very important. As much as you can give time, it's not warranted every day. As much as you can give time, and I also wanted to focus on a new sport. So I'm still in the process, not very good, but some of these things I would do, sir.
I think that overall otherwise sharpens your learning efficiency.
Certainly, sir.
I mean, more physical activity is through your proper neuronal circuits also. They do a lot of help to your learning
I think
efficiency.
boxing gave me resilience also for the body and the mind.
They say boxing is a game of great generosity. It believes
Yes.
only in giving.
Yes.
Anyway, it has been a wonderful, talk to you. More than the strategies for the examination, you have also given the entire psychology of looking at life, I think, to the people listening to you. Could you just sum up with any, bullets of advices you would like to give to the aspirants?
So I began in 2019, and I've had a long journey. I did not know the number of attempts. I did not know the amount of effort that would be needed. But looking back, it has been very daunting for me to see my journey grow. But I also want to tell everyone that in this preparation, it's very easy to be distracted by too many external factors. Perhaps the sources, the toppers, the peer group, what will someone think of me having a better job, someone is of a higher rank. It's not important what anyone says about you in the exam. You are not answerable to anyone. If you have a very strong why, I need to achieve a goal, I need to push my potential, then that centers you completely. So asking the wrong questions like how many attempts or so and so may not be necessary at that point. So I would suggest everyone, if they have some time today, to really chalk down 4 or 5 reasons of why you want this service and completely go internal than remain external. If you go internal, you will not fear failure. You will be a much more centered person who will really love the journey more than anything else. So this is how my 4 years have been. I hope a lot of this can also be understood by those who are feeling maybe panic, anxiety for the coming exams. But I want to tell you, it's very doable if you have the right centered philosophy with you. Thank you so much.
Beautifully put, Eshani. I mean, I just hope that it would help many people. I think other than civil services examination, aspirants also would find so much of merit in what you have been speaking all through this period. We wish you all the best. I think this philosophy would also ensure that you do wonderfully well in the service, and we keep getting to read a lot about the wonderful job that you do in it.
Thank you, sir.
Loads of wishes.
Thank you so much,
Stay
sir.
healthy and stay spirited like you always have been. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, sir. Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.